Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. We'll call this 22nd regular session of the Mayor and City Council to order. We'll have the invocation given by Councilmember Quarterman and the pledge of the flag. If you would please stand and join us.
As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community. Keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas, and on those things upon future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so quick announcements. We'll be following the rules of procedure that were adopted by this administration on December 20th, 2016. If you have a cell phone or electronic device, please put it on mute. All correspondence for distribution to elected officials should be provided to the city clerk and should include a copy for the city clerk for inclusion in the official record. Our next scheduled meetings are no meeting on the 5th of September. We'll meet the 12th and 19th at work sessions at 4 p.m. and then Tuesday, September 26th, the regular session at 7 p.m. We have some guests tonight and some awards to hand out. Highlight Hagerstown Awards, Kathy.
Every year we invite members of our community to nominate properties they feel have either been enhanced in the past year or just year after year make a wonderful contribution to our community and would like them to be recognized with a Highlight Hagerstown Award. We, we've been giving them out in a residential category and a commercial category, and this year we're also giving them out in a public space enhancement category based on nominations that we received. The very first one that we have is 1163 Hamilton Boulevard. The owner is James Leitner. This property was nominated because it was a formerly blighted, foreclosed half a double. You can see it was so blighted it was always dark. On the left and the top there is what it was like before. And the new owner brought the property back up more in line with neighborhood standards, is what the nomination said. And so we wanted to recognize James Leitner for what he's been doing with 1163 Hamilton Boulevard.
James here.
And the next one is 209 East Franklin Street. Catherine Annette Berger is the owner. The owner consistently beautifies the front of this downtown townhouse with flower planters and other decorations, which makes a strong statement of community pride at this entrance corridor to the downtown. All right. And the third one is 916 Mulberry Avenue. The owners are Dennis and Brenda Embley. This nomination said the owners consistently maintain and beautify this home in the north end to a high degree, which enhances the neighborhood. And as you can see, it is always decorated and very neat and tidy. So Dennis and Brenda Embley.
Not here.
Okay.
I like the flagpole.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into the commercial category. The very first one, we have a few slides for this, is 367 East Franklin Street. Lloyd Thorburn bought the property and has renovated into becoming the game room garage. He enhanced the formerly vacant property, which used to have a large overgrown weed pit in the front, which you can see in the top left photo. And he turned that into the parking lot for this facility. As you can see on the other sides, this is what it looks like from the Franklin Street side. And painted the building, put in some new sidewalks, various shrubberies and trees have been and are going to be added to the property. And here's a photo, hot off the press, of the inside, so you're gonna wanna go check it out. So we'd like to invite up Lloyd Thorburn of 339 Antietam LLC, and anyone else in his party.
you, going by that property is just amazing.
Well, thank you.
Compared to, two short years.
Thank you so much. We're proud of it.
You should be, as you should be.
I'm gonna put you on Facebook.
No, I'm good. I need some.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
And the second commercial award goes to 61 through 63 East Franklin Street. The owner, Hagerstown Franklin 6169 East Trust, which is actually Freedom Equity, the alias from Freedom Equity. The owner renovated the ground floor of the space for the City Ballet School, enhanced the dated facade of these two mixed-use buildings to create an attractive modern statement along this entry corridor into the downtown. And so we would like to invite up Freedom Equity and Danielle from the City Ballet School.
Thank you very much.
And next, we have the two Public Space Enhancement Awards. The first one is the west side of the fairground stalls. There, I had to measure off a map. It's pretty impressive. If you drive back there, it's about 500 feet long. And 4 members of the community took it upon themselves to enhance. And you can see where the blue arrows are. That's the beginning and the end of it, from Fairgrounds Avenue almost down to Wayside, along the back side of the stalls. It had just been sort of overgrown, you know, a weed and trash collector, retaining wall, and they took it upon themselves to plant the entire length of that 500 feet. So it makes a much more attractive backdrop to the buildings for the neighbors who have to look that way from the backs of their properties. And so this enhancement turned an eyesore for the neighborhood into a public garden maintained by these residents: Sherry Fearnow, Vicky Lookabaugh, Penny Nye, and Myra Constable.
Come forward.
And we don't have one for Christopher, but I have to acknowledge, and since no one spoke tonight, I'd like to have that opportunity, please.
Of course you can. You gotta speak loud. We don't have.
Okay, that's fine.
Bob, it's up here.
I'm known for speaking loud. What do you want to do first? Picture first?
Picture first.
Okay, let me just say, it was one of my harebrained ideas. And with that, I got a hold of Mara and said, okay, can we do this? So it has taken us 3 years. And this last year has been the roughest year because we had a knee replacement with this one, a knee replacement last fall with that one, and me with a brace on the leg and one on the hand. So we've worked very diligently, but there are other ones too that I need to thank, and that would be Christopher, who started out with us, and he got a job, so I don't have him as often. Also, we had Brian Lookabaugh, her son, my husband, who didn't want to do it but has helped, and Gary Swaggart, who is a city employee who also has helped to do the mulch in the beginning, and Ryan Berger, who is just a friend of mine who actually helped to come and do the weeds, a lady who lives up where we do that maintains in back of her place, and we literally carried mulch. We carried it by buckets. We carried water by containers, and now we drag the hose from my house up and down the alley. But the beautification has been so impressive that those who come up and down that alley and they are seeing us in our garb really appreciate it, and that really makes us feel good. But I do have one request for the city, if you will look into it. The wall is deteriorating. It's probably over 100 years old, and there are areas that are there that is a complete wash down. We're trying to maintain it with plants that will grab hold. But if there's a possibility that there could be a wall put in front of that, just to kind of shore it up. And also, if we can have the dirt removed that's right in front of the wall, down at the alley part, because I'm standing up, because it's difficult for me to try to get up. I gotta walk to one end and the other to weed. If we could have that dirt cleared out, that at least if we got a ladder there, I can step up and onto. It would make it much easier. I thought maybe Rodney would be here tonight. That would have been, oh, there he is. That would be my spiel. That would be my spiel. I had asked Mark last year, especially about the dirt, and it was at the end of the year, and he said, well, because of winter coming, that it may not be a good idea, but it really is. If you look at it, Rodney, and you go by and look at it, you know. And we do have a mascot, and the mascot is a white dove. I rescued her out of the middle of the street last year, and the dove has decided to stay with us. So she walks the wall and the alley. So if you're doing something in the evenings is when you want to come by, and we're out there usually watering, and you'll see the mascot too. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you guys very much.
And finally, the last Public Space Enhancement Award is for the Hagerstown Cultural Trail. On the left, you can see the map of the length and breadth of the trail. On the right is the ribbon cutting that we had back on June 17th. This trail, for folks who are not too familiar with it, the idea was spawned in the Community City Center plan, the project we worked on with Urban Partners. And then the mayor and city council of that time just jumped on it, said this is going to be the first thing that we work on. Put together the funding to make it possible. We hired May and Reichel Associates to design the trail for us, and they had a public meeting with the community to help get input on how the trail should be designed. And then we thought a trail is not enough. We need it to be a destination as well. And so a public art master plan was created we hired Cochrane Studios to develop that plan. And again, they worked with the community to find out what would you like to see on the trail. We have this amount of money, and this is what different things cost. What would you like to do in phase one? And they actually kind of played a game with us to do that. It was very fun, had a lot of good input. And so the art that you see along the trail is a result of that project and the public art master plan. And then the property owners along the trail, the Herald Mail, the Hagerstown Housing Authority, and Ellsworth Electric all worked with the city to either donate land or donate easements to make the trail possible. And then we put it out to bid, and it was finished on time. We had C.W. Hetzer construct the trail, Botanica do all of the plantings that are along the trail, and then, as I said earlier, the trail opened to the public at a ribbon cutting on June 17th. And so if you have not been to the trail, you should really make an effort. And so we have certificates, and you can actually see members of my family. I wanted to have people on the trail when I was taking these photos. They have no idea they're featured. They don't live here, so they'll never know. but anyway, we want to recognize May and Reichel, Cochrane Studios, C.W. Hetzer, Botanica, the Public Art Selection Committee that worked with our consultant on selecting the artists for the work that was done on the trail, Rodney Tissue, the Herald Mail, Hagerstown Housing Authority, and John Barr, and then also the prior mayor and city council and the current mayor and city council.
Okay, I have a bunch of them here. So, come on up.
All who are present for the trail,
Kristen,
please come
down.
forward.
Paul, come down. Marty, come up. Penny, come up. John Barr, come up. Valerie. Emily, Lou. Rodney.
remarks. Why should we do this, guys?
Al?
I forgot to mention all that John Barr did to help make the mural of unusual size possible. Should have mentioned that in my remarks.
Any idea when the fence is coming? 2 weeks. Marty, what about the fence that was with the mod? Is that coming or not? It's here, we're just,
Paul? Rodney? Open them up, guys. Show them. So you never know. We Marty and Rodney? Bruce. Bruce, come on.
One step to your left. And if you guys in the back can step forward, please.
You always have.
Because we're going to do a little step to your left. Perfect. Good looking group. All right, right here on 3. 1, 2, 3. Take another one. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, John.
All right. All right.
Oh, give me.
Grab my glasses. Thank you. Okay. Next up are citizen comments. Before we start citizen comments this evening, I only ask, and we ask as a body, that when you speak, be respectful, and please keep in mind that we believe in freedom of speech, and there's consequences to freedom of speech sometimes. So let's just try to be respectful, say what you have to say, and get your point across. The first one to speak, Jimmy Devine.
Good evening, members.
You
of the
timing
city-
me?
Pardon me?
Are you timing me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, members of the city council. My name's James Devine, Post Office Box 2217, Hagerstown, Maryland. I guess you know why I'm here. Last month, I spoke before the city council and gave a statement before the legislative body. As you know, the Republican chief of police was offended by these statements I made and started an unwarranted investigation against me. He called in the Secret Service, falsely accusing me of making a threat against government officials. It was, and I feel that I wasn't the threat. It's the chief of police that's a threat against me. You know, I felt that I put out a hand of friendship, and I felt he spit in my face. You know, this should have never happened to me. What I value most in life is my privacy and to be left alone. He violated this, you know, and there's no turning back on it. You know, I have people coming up, you know, to where I live and violating my privacy. You know, I do not bother people. I leave them alone. You know, and I felt like I should have been left alone. You know, the statements I gave against this president are truth. And the truth is between libel and slander. If it's truth, it's not libel or slander. It's the truth. You know, when I see this administration, the way it acts as president, you know, you want to see what the Affordable Care Act was that he wanted. He said it was going to be great. We're here after 6 years. Here's the Republican plan. You know, and it's not only their plan, but they wanted to kill thousands of people in their plan. You know, you got to admit when people aren't provided health care, when they aren't provided the chemotherapy, the drugs they need, they're going to die. So this president was actually going to kill thousands of American people by what he wanted to do. And when they badmouthed John McCain on this, it was disgrace. John McCain's a war hero. He went to Vietnam, got shot down, went to imprisonment, and he stayed there with his fellow comrades and was tortured because of it. And here they're bad-mouthing the man. You know, he has brain cancer, the same that Ted Kennedy had. He's going to die soon. But they'll praise him after he dies, but while he's alive, they're bad-mouthing him. You know, and then the way this administration's run, you know, the EPA, Scott Pruitt, he's destroying the EPA. You know, he's granted, he's revised a pesticide that gives birth defects. You know, he's telling the scientists not to write reports. He's at the EPA museum, they took down everything about climate change and put up signs about coal. You know, and believe it, climate change, look at Texas. This is the world to come. When this ocean warms up, these storms aren't going to be, you know, a random. They're going to be a steady thing of storms, you know, because that's what happens when the ocean warms up. All along the East Coast, it's going to be tremendous. And this president and his administration are attacking the environment and attacking climate change. They don't want to hear climate change. It's not in their vocabulary. This president preaches hate. And when I came before the city council last month and spoke about people being martyrs to give their lives so they could neutralize the Republicans, I looked in the dictionary when I wrote those words. And martyr means to sacrifice greatly. It doesn't mean to die. It means to sacrifice for your cause. And to neutralize the Republicans, when you have white supremacists and neo-Nazis, and this president doesn't speak out against them, he's saying that both parties are at fault. They're not at fault. You have people with hate speech, and this president espouses it every day in the words he speaks. He speaks it against immigrants. He speaks it against the underclass people. You know, you can even see when he pardons the Arizona sheriff out there. He disrespects the rule of law that the courts has done. They tried to break up the Ninth Circuit. They're appointing a tremendous amount of federal judges. They're trying to change the federal judiciary system. And this is a dictatorship. This is fascist government that I see coming on. And I have a right to speak. When I see is free speech, you know, to say what I think that should be done or must be done, you know, and if you don't say nothing, then you condone what is going on. And I think it's a shame that not enough people are speaking out against this administration. But what does that tell you about the people that voted? What does it tell you about the Americans? Why they voted this idiot into office? You know, that should never be in there. You know, he's a celebrity star. He doesn't have a right to be there. I see my time's running out, so I thank you for inviting me to speak.
Thank you, Jim. No one else has signed up to speak, but if anybody wishes to, you can please step up to the microphone, give us your name and address, and you're open to speak. Okay, moving on. Public, yes.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I'm used to that, don't worry.
My name is Michael Bond from 1132 Hamilton Boulevard. I've been in contact with the Code Administration Office for violations, and since these warnings only give the code and the mandate that's the code infraction, it doesn't actually say specifics. Tried calling the inspector. He's apparently only a part-time employee. Went to the inspection manager. He's near impossible to get a hold of also. Emails unresponded, voicemails unreturned, and I received a fine in the mail now. And last time I spoke, I met him at the council meeting 2 weeks ago, spoke with him in the councilman's chambers, said everything's okay, he would put a freeze to this. And again, it has been frozen to. So when the docket for the work session was trying to figure out ways to get the bankers and other ones that own properties involved, maybe the issue is also with contactability of city employees.
Did you, maybe someone could speak to you after the meeting.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, moving on then. Public hearing, Land Management Code Amendment, auto repair and abandonment of simplified plats.
Good evening. Steve Bachmiller for the Planning and Code Administration Division. This is a public hearing for two proposed text amendments to the Land Management Code. The first I will enter into the record by reference the contents of the zoning, the text amendment files ZT 2007-01 and ZT 2007-02, and also the certification of legal advertisement of this hearing. We have two text amendments. Also, introductions of ordinance were included in your packet for action this evening, so you could start the process of adoption if you choose to. There are two items. One affects Article 4 of the Land Management Code. This is the zoning ordinance. In this particular amendment, this was actually requested by a citizen. It's not often that we actually have citizens specifically go through the process to apply to amend the zoning ordinance, but in this case we did. This would amend the land use chart, that's section Z of Article 4, which is the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance, the back of this article, which is a part of the Land Management Code, is a chart that has all of the various zoning districts across the top, and then the uses going down the left-hand side of the page, and then you use it to reference where permitted uses would be. The gentleman requested an amendment to the zoning ordinance that would permit automobile repair in the IMU zoning district in buildings that were constructed prior to 2010 and with outdoor storage areas fenced by opaque fencing. So what will happen is, if this is adopted, there will be a new line added to the land use chart in the section Z of the zoning ordinance that would permit this, and letter P under the IMU zoning district would be added. Should be noted there are also other zoning districts that already permit automobile repair, but because this is worded in a specific way to address that particular zoning district, we had to create a separate line for it. So it's not going to be the only zoning district in which automobile repair is permitted. It's just it's regulated to some degree within that one zoning district, so we had to list it separately. The second amendment is to Article 5 of the Land Management Code. This is the subdivision and land development ordinance. This is a proposal that I'm going to enter the text into by reference. If I were to read it here, it's so full of governmentese that I don't think folks would follow it too well. But so I'll enter the actual text into the record by reference. And what this does, it allows, in a limited number of circumstances, where townhouses that existed that were not on their own lots and were subdivided using the simplified subdivision plat process, to basically, if those townhouses are removed, to have that simplified subdivision plat undone. This could be a situation where you have townhouses that were non-conforming uses. You can't, in the R-mod zoning district, you can't do townhouses in the R-mod, but were grandfathered in, and then they were later subdivided to put them on individual lots. Or it could be any of the other residential zoning districts that do allow townhouses by right or special exception, and the lots that were created are below our current requirements if you were creating new townhouses from scratch, that these were essentially grandfathered in, not due to the use, but due to their size. What this does is it allows the simplified subdivision plat to be essentially reversed and the property be returned to the condition that it was in prior to the recordation of the simplified plat. What this would mean is we would go back and look at that plat and we will see what property lines existed on the property at the time that the simplified plat was recorded. If it was all just one big parcel, then that's all that the property owner will get. But basically, everybody in this situation would be able to go back to where they were before the simplified plat. If there were 2 lots on the property, then we would reestablish the pre-existing line, and they would be able to move forward from that point. We reviewed this with the city attorney, and they had no problems with the legal sufficiency of the proposal or of the adding automobile repair to the industrial mixed-use district. That's all I have.
Okay, all right. Any questions from the council for Steve?
Thank you.
Take testimony for text amendment 2017-01.
Good evening. My name is Alan Decker. My address is 44 Philadelphia Avenue, Waynesboro, Pennsylvania. My interest in this situation is that I am employed here in Hagerstown and have proudly been the manager of Roy's Quality Car Care for 16 years, proudly serving our community and everybody that passes through. We've purchased a property that we would like to use as an auto repair. It's in the IMU district, but more generally, the industrial mixed use zoning was supposed to be a melting of the 4 different zonings: the industrial general, industrial restricted, commercial general, and commercial regional. Automotive repair was just, I guess, reluctantly left out of the mix. So I just think it's a perfect spot. Not the location, not necessarily just the location we have, but that type of zoning is the perfect for this, because automotive repair is industrial and commercial at the same time. We don't build much, but we certainly will tear it apart and fix it so somebody else can drive it again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for text amendment 2017-01? Anybody opposed to text amendment 2017-01? Moving on to text amendment 2017-02. Anybody want to speak in favor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council
Lou
members.
told me you get 30 seconds.
You're using a lot of grandfathered time. That's what I'm taking that. And as a matter of fact, my name is Martin Brubaker. My address is Hartle Drive, Hagerstown, 21742. And it's been a long time since I've been on this side of the table. So, but it's good to be here tonight in front of you. I'm speaking in behalf of the Habitat Board of Directors and staff. I'm a member of the Board of Directors to support text amendment 2017-02. We are one of the owners that need this technical adjustment in order to make appropriate use of a property. We actually are reducing density in this property. There were 3 units. It's on Pope Avenue, south of Wilson. There were 3 units on the property. There was a fire. We were given the units, but we had to pay demolition costs. We were proposing a duplex, but we discovered that the grandfather provisions took effect, so we need this technical amendment in order to proceed. We are not proposing any changes in the neighborhood. On the north side of this property is a multi-unit building. On the south side is another duplex, and across the street is a duplex. So we aren't proposing any changes in the character of the neighborhood, and under this amendment, we'll still have to go to the Board of Appeals after the text amendment's approved. But I wanted to take this opportunity to just briefly illustrate what Habitat has done inside the city over the last 10 years. From 2008 through 2017 to date, and that's only partial, several more coming, Habitat has been responsible for investing $2,265,000, $266,000 at a time when the local real estate market, as you all know, has been severely impacted. I redacted the amounts for the individual properties, but when you look at that chart, you all can see that we've invested, literally invested in neighborhoods all over this city, including some of the worst, most disadvantaged socioeconomic neighborhoods that we have. In 2013, the board took a new direction from the stereotypical habitat type property and ventured into rehabbing properties in the city, including the inner city. And you'll see on that chart many rehab projects that we've done since then, including 3 that the city hadn't been able to sell. So we're pretty proud of our record, and you know, we think we're good for the city, and I just wanted to bring that out. We also have continued to seek properties in other municipalities and unincorporated areas. And as a matter of fact, next year too, one will be just outside of Funkstown and one will be in Smithsburg. So we continue to move in that direction as well. And the final point I want to leave you with is that Habitat properties pay full real estate taxes. And the homeowners have to put in 200 hours of sweat equity in order to move in and occupy these properties. So besides the business investment, we think our homeowners are a good investment for Hagerstown. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Marty.
Anybody else need to testify in favor of 2017-02? Anyone who wants to testify opposing 2017-02? Seeing none, Steve, anything to add?
Just wanted to add for the record something I failed to mention earlier, and that the Planning Commission did have their own public hearing on this, and they do recommend approval of the proposals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will leave the record open for 10 days for any written comment. We'll close the public hearings. Thank you. Moving on, city administrators' comments.
Yes, this past weekend was a beautiful weather weekend, as well as a very great time at the August-Toberfest. I want to thank the August-Toberfest committee and the city staff and all the many, many volunteers that it takes to put together that festival, and it was just a fun time. And that's all I have.
Mr. Metzner?
Just as we have our, excuse me, our meeting tonight, certainly hundreds of thousands of our fellow Americans are being affected by the weather caused by Hurricane Harvey, and tens of thousands have been displaced, and our prayers are with all those.
Thursday is International Overdose Awareness Day, and there will be a vigil in Public Square at 8 o'clock. So I ask that everyone join us. If you've lost someone to the disease of addiction and would like to bring a picture, we ask that you do. In the first half of 2017 in Washington County, our EMS have run 700 calls relating to drug abuse. There's been a reported 190 overdoses and 23 deaths. So it's safe to say our community is in crisis over this, and I hope to see everyone join us at Public Square at 8 p.m. on Thursday evening. That's it.
First off, just to echo the sentiments of the city administrator, a huge thank you to staff and everyone that organized the August-Toberfest. This was my first time participating as an official capacity. But still had a great time nonetheless. So great time had by all, so thank you. Also wanted to mention a big thanks to the Hagerstown Fire Department. As we all know, there was a serious fire, although outside the city limits, out the Woodbridge Apartments. It's my understanding that it was the city fire department that showed up there first and probably prevented much more, well, not damage, obviously the building was a total loss, but prevented any injuries to the occupants. Also had the privilege of riding along with the Hagerstown Police Department this week. Thank you to Chief Brito and Officer Coons, who I rode with. I was with them from about 10 p.m. until 6 a.m. It was a quiet evening, which was good. But thank you nonetheless. It's always a privilege and an honor to ride with you guys, and appreciate all that you do to keep us safe each night. And last but not least, I just want to bring up a situation here that I've communicated with various emails to this body over the last 2 weeks in regards to a decision at Court Park Apartments, the Planning Commission 2 weeks ago. I know there's been some discussion internally that not only that I'd like to see what type of action this body may have, if any. I know that Councilman Alshire has raised a couple points as well. Have not been able to speak directly with other members of this body, but would be interested to see if that is a point of interest that would like to be looked at. I did talk to Councilman Munson at one point. He's not here this evening, so I can't comment on his behalf, but I would be interested in Councilman Metzner and Councilwoman Keller's position of if that's something that they would like to
Certainly,
look
be
into.
happy to discuss it in the work
All right.
session, Paul. I have
Thank
no
you.
problems with that at all.
Much appreciated. That's all.
Kristen?
I don't have anything.
Very short prayers and thoughts go out to our fellow Americans in Texas, Louisiana. Pray for everyone to be safe. Also, on Saturday at 1 p.m., there will be a silent march from the Washington County Circuit Court Building to City Hall. The march is not in our city. It's a unity march. It's a silent march, and all are welcome to join. So, thank you. All right, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move for the approval of minutes as presented for the mayor and council meetings held on July 11, 18, and 25 of 2017.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds like 4 to me. Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move that all the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 to nothing. Introduction of an ordinance, land management code amendment, auto repair.
Mr. Mayor, I remove the mayor and city council introduce an ordinance to amend chapter 140 land management code of the city code. This amendment shall revise article 4 zoning, section Z land use chart to permit automobile repair uses in the IMU industrial mixed use district under certain stated performance standards upon the effective date of this ordinance. The newly updated land management code that includes this amendment and a parallel amendment to article 5 proceeding at the same time as this amendment, if that amendment is adopted, shall be identified as the land management code version 3.2.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4 to nothing. Introduction of an ordinance, land management code, abandonment of simplified plats.
Mr. Mayor, I move the Marion City Council introduce an ordinance to amend Chapter 140 Land Management Code of the City Code. This amendment shall revise Article 5 Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance, Section A, General Provisions, Subsection 3, Application and Interpretation, Item D, Adjustment to Recorded Plats. This amendment shall create a process by which a simplified plat created to place non-conforming and/or non-complying townhouse units on individual lots may be abandoned. Upon the effective date of this ordinance, the newly updated land management code that includes this amendment and a parallel amendment to Article 4 proceeding at the same time as this amendment, if that amendment is adopted, shall be identified as Land Management Code version 3.2.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4 to nothing. Introduction of an ordinance, quick claim, an alley adjacent to 115 North Prospect Street.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for the introduction of an ordinance making a determination of certain property, an alleyway between 115 and 125 North Prospect Street at the Hagerstown Rescue Mission is no longer needed by the city of Hagerstown for a public purpose, and authorizing the execution of a quitclaim deed for the same.
Second.
All in favor? Discussion, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4 to nothing. Approval of resolution of intent for construction and operation of Thomas Kennedy Park.
Mr. Mayor, hereby move for the approval to accept an agreement with the Thomas Kennedy Center regarding the construction and operation of Thomas Kennedy Park at 50 East Baltimore Street. The city will assist the center with construction, provide $9,000 in current funds for maquette and engineering, and $30,000 in fiscal year 19 CIP funds for foundations, landscaping, and other amenities. Total construction cost of project is estimated at $330,000.
Second.
Discussion.
I want to make a comment. You know, even before the construction of the new library, it seems like forever ago now, you know, one of the things that I'd said at that time was, you know, it would be a shame and a failure if we were to open this $24 million library and this huge window that looks out the back, and what you would end up seeing, the most noticeable thing when you came into the parking lot would be the two dilapidated structures, and we did it anyway, and they sat there for a while, and you know, government being what it is, took its time to take the necessary steps, and I feel to some degree as a bit of a champion of trying to get those structures removed, and rightly so. They were beyond their useful life cycle. And I think for exactly this purpose of you know, having this additional plaza of public space downtown, and the presentation that we received and the interest, I think fits exactly that vision and thought process. I will only note this, that I have struggled significantly, and probably unduly so, with my ability to want to approve this this evening, because I even went by it 2 or 3 more times in the last week, and I have to tell you, one of the most beautiful things that came about from that entire process was that huge tree that just can't be replaced once it's gone. Within that, I think it is exactly that type of shade tree you'd almost read out of a book where folks would retire to, and it's a shame that the design just doesn't make an effort to fit that tree, and I completely don't accept that it's in any condition of degradation. Like I said, I went by it even a couple more times, and you know, as reluctant as I am, I'm certainly going to vote in favor. But I just wish that there was greater effort to you know, to save that type of greenery in a plaza that you just, I mean, it'll take you 50 years to reestablish something like that in exactly that type of park setting that you want to create around such a venue as a library. So, just my 2 cents.
Anybody else?
I want to concur with many things that Kristen said, especially I remember us all taking a tour of the brand-new library that was about ready to open and looking out the window and going, wow, that's what's going to be looked at. And I couldn't agree more about the tree. I certainly will defer to the professionals and the experts, but we were all amazed when the tree appeared. It had been there all the time and just is a beautiful thing. But again, certainly going to vote for it. Thank you.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Approval and agreement, management of the inline rink at Fairground Park.
Mr. Mayor, we move for approval to accept the agreement with Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association regarding operation and management of the inline rink at Fairgrounds Park.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I do have some concerns, mainly theoretical more than maybe practical, because of who we're making this agreement with. I would note a couple things, though. One, it's a little concerning to me that nowhere in this agreement is there any mention of just open public use time for people who want to go to the rink and use it. I totally understand and am excited to see that we're calling for leagues and actually going to have have the type of thing we have at the ice rink. But unlike the ice rink, this is a place that can be used pretty much 24/7 and for a whole lot more than just inline skating, specifically basketball. I'm assuming we still have the nets up there and the backboards. So it concerns me that there's no mention at all in this agreement that there will be any type of reserve time or guarantees that it will just be open for public use. And the other thing that concerns me, again, given who we're making this agreement with, this is a group that has absolutely proven itself, okay? So I don't know that there's any larger supporter than this group than I am, but when I start looking at agreements in general, and I specifically call paragraph 2 of the agreement, number 2, that makes the term of the agreement through June 30, 2019, and really provides no out to terminate the agreement earlier if the city finds there's a good reason to do it. Now, if this was an agreement in which the other side, no matter who it would be paying substantial sums of money or giving up a whole lot of things, I could understand why we should be locked into that. But as I see it all, they are kind enough to agree to run it, schedule it, and do that. But there's not money being exchanged or anything like that, and this is public property. I think that we should have paragraph 2, the term of the agreement, that after it says, notwithstanding the foregoing, the city may terminate this agreement any time upon giving user 90 days written notice. I think is fine with that, anything else in the rest of that paragraph. I don't know how everybody else feels. And the main reason is because I would prefer not to set a precedent myself about giving exclusive rights to anyone of city property that they're not paying some consideration for and us not being able to terminate.
Those are good points. On the first, the public use, I don't see that in the document, but I can tell you that when we met with the HIAAA and POW, that was definitely discussed. What they told me was that they anticipate using it maybe 2 nights a week. POW uses it 1 or 2 times a week, and the rest of the time it's going to be open to the public. The basketball hoops are still there, and I think the public will have a lot of opportunity, even though this agreement doesn't specifically say that.
Good. Well, under number 1, it says non-exclusive use.
But it then refers to who has the priority use as POW.
Right.
And listen, having Rodney say what he says, I don't need this agreement to say anything about the public use. I'm familiar with POW. I'm familiar with Hagerstown Ice Amateur Athletic Association. Their word is as good as gold as far as I'm concerned. And I just needed to bring it up so we could get clarification on it.
Okay.
And I would defer to Jen, but item 22 talks about default 2. So I think we have.
But the default isn't what I'm worried about. I'm more concerned if there's just some reason that the city would decide on its own property that they were going to do something else for any reason, that's all.
I see. I understand.
It's not that we would expect these folks to do something bad or not live up to it. It's just, and again, because of who we have the agreement with, I'm not really concerned, but I'm not real happy with setting a precedent that we would have an agreement to tie up our property without any ability to terminate it just because we wanted to, unless, again, there was consideration being given to us other than what's here. I would still vote for it.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Approval of wastewater division motion granting permission for city staff to finalize grant policy process to receive an MDE grant for energy water infrastructure programs at the wastewater treatment plant.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move the mayor and city council approve the wastewater division motion granting permission for city staff to finalize the grant policy process to receive an MDE grant for energy water infrastructure programs at the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $82,000.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Request for proposals, RFP for development partner for Catalyst Project Number 3, student housing.
Mr. Mayor, I hereby move the mayor and city council authorize staff in partnership and in agreement with USMH to finalize any changes to the priority area identified on the USMH student housing project area map, and then to post the attached request for proposals, RFP, for developer/partner for the second pilot housing project as part of Catalyst Project Number 3, University System of Maryland at Hagerstown, USMH expansion support.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question. So, in the memo of sort of the amended area, how far out are we talking?
In the amended map, it removes the red cross, which was 2 linear blocks from Public Square.
Right?
So we'll accept proposals from within all of the CCMU zoning district, which is the blue line on the revised map.
So, does that mean it's still, so it can't be any further out? Under no circumstances can it be any further out than that? Is that what the changes mean? I guess I read them a little differently.
Yes, it would be that you need to be inside the CCMU zoning district to apply to receive for this grant, the way this is written.
Okay.
And the change that we made was primarily because USMH has the Walnut Street Clinic building, which is outside of the previous red cross area that was the priority area. So the decision was to allow property owners throughout all of the CCMU zoning area to propose, but evaluate, excuse me, based on proximity to USMH student buildings, which could be the main building or the Walnut Street Clinic or any other buildings that USMH might occupy.
So, and forgive me for I guess maybe diving a little further in, but the line, I understand the line follows a district, but the line, I guess, seems somewhat erratic. In other words, I guess I'm trying to figure out if it's cutting parts of it out because of the district, or it's cutting parts of it out of numbers of blocks. They're in sort of the same general vicinity, if you will. In other words, you got this sort of blue line that goes around spaces rather than simply a square of blocks, if you will.
Right, because
and are we doing that because it's the district, or are we doing that because, to me, it's no further? I mean, let's take this blue and you go all the way up, but it doesn't go equally as far to the left or right, or to the south, and so I guess I'm trying to figure out the impetus of limiting it to that beyond simply the fact that it's that district. Is it because there aren't buildings of units of that nature in these other parts of these blocks that are equally or arguably less of a distance from the targeted location?
The blue line is definitely the city center mixed-use zoning district.
Okay.
And so areas outside of the blue line are residential zoning districts.
But
And Kathy, if you want to add any additional.
But some of those might have buildings of a competitive nature, and I feel like we're sort of eliminating them from that competition because of a line around a district. And I don't know, you know, it'd just be odd to me if somebody came in and they were literally, you know, another block to the left, and had that capability, and you'd say, well, you're just a block too far. But if they would have been to the north, you know, they'd have been 3 blocks in.
Since we eliminated the priority Red Cross area, now the priority area is the CCMU.
Correct.
It doesn't mean that we won't allow this program outside of the CCMU. It just means that those inside the CCMU on a grading scale get a better grade, right?
The way it's written, it is saying that you would need to be inside the CCMU.
Right, they're eliminated altogether. And I guess I found that a little odd, because if you go back in, I understand, and I'll take an example of the parking, where if you go back and so you've eliminated sort of the red cross, if you will, and now you've said, hey, it's the blue district. But then you've also eliminated the language that was previously applicable that said you gotta have adequate off-street parking. And all I'm saying is, there could be a place just a block outside of that blue line to the right or to the left, or you know, or to the east or west or to the south, that may even meet those parameters in a better situational capacity, but we've drawn it because we've drawn it to that district. And I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out, is why we stopped it, because, you know, on the east side, I mean, that line even cuts blocks in half in some areas. And it just seemed odd that if you're going to eliminate it, you'd sort of pick a square, you know, and say equidistant in equal directions, and not, you know, 6 blocks this way and 2 blocks that way and 3 that way and 2 that way, that you'd say, you know, it's a defined set of squares. Because for me, I guess the impetus of doing so was the walkability. And to me, this district speaks to something differently than the walkability of the goal we're trying to achieve. Because if it's 6 blocks, if you've got a 6-block walk down Potomac Street, how is that better than a 3-block walk, you know, or 4-block walk from Washington Franklin area? Again, that's my curiosity, because it does eliminate them altogether, but we've also eliminated the criteria.
You don't have a 6-block walk from anywhere.
That made it more competitive to begin with. And I feel like we've sort of done both.
You have like a 3-block walk to the public square in any direction.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that went into the original, for the first project we did. We were looking at that Red Cross as the priority, but we would entertain proposals outside of that within the CCMU,
Right.
if there were, you know, wonderful characteristics of the project. And then for this second one, we decided to do away with the priority area, but we still kept the CCMU, because that's the area where we encourage apartment buildings. You get beyond that boundary into some of the surrounding residential districts, and there's some situations where you can have an apartment building, some situations where you can't. So it's not, you hate to give someone a false sense of hope that, oh, I'm gonna get this money, I'm gonna be able to do an apartment building here. Well, you may not be able to if you're out in that RMED area or out in the RO area.
And I hear it. I'm just thinking of, there's a property that's being redeveloped right now on South Prospect, right on the corner, I guess it is. Tan one, I think. Anyway,
Right.
I just look at something like that, or the red one that was across that was condos, and I don't know if it's still condos, but I look at some of those on that, and they're sort of out of the running, if you will, even though they're arguably closer, you know what I mean, to the vicinity which we're trying to achieve, and would certainly, in some instances, improve the marketability of a particular street like that, you know, with this type of program.
And we did, it's not reflected in what we have before you, but we did kick around. South Prospect was specifically discussed because it's so close to the Walnut Street Clinic.
And it's got such, I mean, it has like nice, historic, larger structures that
are zoned residential.
that are largely serving this
RMED.
type of purpose now that we want to see that occur in, that are close to the Walnut Street, where we're looking to sort of expand it to, and link it to City Park. And so, you know, even if you look at this map, there's sort of this black line, you know, that you could almost draw to include it and square that up. I don't know if anybody sees that.
So basically, you want to include South Prospect in that, if there was interest. You want
Yeah.
to exclude them per se.
Yeah. Any more than I want to exclude, when you head north on North Potomac Street, you have those with 3 or 4, I think one has like 18 units, you know, and a couple of those have been for sale or are for sale, or maybe they're not for sale now. I mean, That to me is a prime example of a place you would want to.
You know, the beginning, if I recall correctly, and I know it wasn't an office when this all came about, but the whole premise behind student housing was to be within a block of the University of Maryland. Now we're talking going out 4 blocks or 5 blocks or, I mean, listen, I don't have a problem. I mean, we got rid of the Red Cross because I had a question about it last week. But, if you feel that, making the border, I don't know, West Antietam as opposed to, cutting it off there at Washington, basically. I mean, I don't care. But if you have a suggestion, let's just make it and get a consensus.
Also, the way the motion is written, we can take this feedback back to USMH and finalize the boundaries with their agreement.
My only suggestion is square it up. That's my only suggestion, is that it just seems oddly reaching into the dual highway, but doesn't include South Prospect. Just seems a little odd to me if the programs are moving toward the west direction with Wall. You know what I mean? So if you're looking for a specific suggestion, it's to square it up.
Square it up. Let's make it square.
And based
We
on
okay to make
discussion-
it square, everybody?
Based on discussions we've had with USMH, I don't think they'd have a problem with this first block of South Prospect.
No, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't. We're gonna square it up.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's it for us tonight, folks?
No.
I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. We pulled the approval of the sale of the truck.
Oh, we pulled it?
Yes.
Yes. So if you're interested in a 1997 fire truck, we got one for sale.
So there's a chance.
Right, and we thought there was, right. So we're waiting for all the interest to wane. Right.
I had the money.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.